Welcome to Wellspring Wednesday Chapel Service. We hope that you will light your chalice along with us and also that you will sing when we sing. Have you ever had the experience of where you, wanting to offer compassion, comfort to someone, offered what you had and found out that it was not what they were looking for? It was not received in the way that you thought it would be? I will admit I've done this. I've had that feeling of, this is what I wanted to offer to you, thinking this is what you needed. And I have walked away from those experiences thinking something wrong with them, that they didn't take my gift. And I wonder, did I maybe just not get it? Did I just not understand what it was that they were after? Was it about me and what I thought they needed? I don't want that to happen again. I don't want that to be all I can do when I'm really wanting to be compassionate to others who are suffering or in pain. Come, let us worship together. Please join us in singing, Come Sing a Song with Me. Each week, we ask Unity families to share their joys and sorrows, their concerns, blessings, gifts, and challenges with us over email so that we can bring the real stories of our lives into this place, so we can celebrate together, give each other support, and hold on to each other in love. This week, we asked families of the Religious Education Ministry Team, or the REMT, to share what is on their hearts and minds on this ever more springy April day. This from Michelle Misi, who runs religious education. Karma, aka Evie, Misi Hill, is both nervous and excited about starting in-person school once a week, and about signing up for freshman classes at Central. Michelle is joyfully excited about expanding our vegetable and pollination gardens in the Unity Green Space this spring. Morgan France Ramirez shares, I am joyful for a great wedding anniversary and for more time to be creative, introspective, and with my family. My son Pete, his joy is cheese. Also, his Spider-Man Lego car and Chico Bon Bon, a new Netflix show. My son Emmy's joy is Minecraft. My sorrow lately is at times struggling to communicate my deep truths with loved ones. Pete's sorrow is some owies that he has. Emmy's sorrow is learning from making bad decisions. And Mom, Sarah Ulmer, adds, I have to say, I am joyful for migrating birds, buffalo heads, coots, grebes on Lake Nokomis, and a pileated woodpecker sighting while walking in my neighborhood. These have brought me great unexpected jolts of joy. Nate Solis, on behalf of wife Karen, Isla, and Lachlan. My joy is watching my kiddo dive headfirst into her first season of Ultimate Frisbee. She is outside throwing every moment she can, practically sleeping with her disc and so nervous for her first game. I have loved seeing her develop as a team player and as a confident athlete. My sorrow is that our dog of the last 5 years needs to be rehomed. This has been a heartbreaking decision that feels like it invites a lot of judgment, and we are trying hard to find someone we know to take her instead of putting her up for adoption, and it is just awfully hard. Jane Bear Benson shares with us her big joy of the week for the Bear Benson crew, which is that their son Oliver comes home from school for the summer on Thursday. No real sorrows for the Bear Bensons, as we're overwhelmed by the big joy of all being together again. Although Jane does say our dog was puking for 3 hours in the middle of the night recently because the cottonwood trees are dropping their sticky pods and her dog loves to eat them, but they make her sick. Ugh. Husband Brad Benson adds, I was able to go to Violet's basketball tournament this weekend, and she scored like half of the team's points in their first game, and it really felt like a normal weekend day. Would you join me in prayer? Holy One, help us now to breathe, to hold everyone and everything close to our hearts, and let us allow ourselves to stop our busy minds. Stop our brains from going in the way they will to what should I do, what is next, what is going to happen for me, how am I going to control, how am I going to make things better. Let us breathe and listen. And listen to these things in which we find joy, and listen to people's sorrows, people's pains. Make our ears lead. Listen to each other. We try too hard without listening, without hearing each other, without understanding, I don't have the answer. I will get the answer for what is needed when I listen, when I truly hear.
In 1947, the British-controlled India was divided, was partitioned into India and Pakistan. And immediately with that partitioning, there was conflict that erupted between Hindus and Muslims, between neighbor and neighbor. And death and destruction and chaos was happening everywhere. It was in that historical moment that Mahatma Gandhi walked into Delhi, the city at the center of the mayhem and violence and destruction. And he took his seat on the ground, and Gandhi began the last hunger strike of his lifetime. Fasting was Gandhi's way of appealing to the conscience of both Hindus and Muslims to stop their violence. Gandhi understood that compassion too often was compassion for people who are just like us. It was compassion that was born out of sympathy with the people who are our sympathizers. What they value, what they like, what they love are the things that I like, things that I love. But Gandhi knew that compassion needed to go further than just sympathy. It needed to be a compassion rooted in empathy with the other person who is different from how I understand things, how I love things. Empathy that is respect for the other just as they are as the other. But Gandhi also knew that compassion wasn't just feeling sympathy or even empathy. It needed to be about taking a step and entering into the pain and the hurt and the suffering of someone, whether they are alike or different from us, and doing something to ease their suffering. In one of the final scenes from the 1982 movie, Gandhi, some of the leaders of the Hindu mob, they rush into the building where Gandhi is in bed as he is on his hunger strike. And they approach Gandhi and they say, "It stopped. We've promised." And they drop their weapons. It's promised, and we have stopped the fighting. And Gandhi understands. He feels relief, and he says, "Go, and God be with you." But just at that moment, another Hindu man breaks through into the gathering. And you can tell from his distraught face and his eyes that are wild with anger and grief. You can tell that this man has something deeply suffering going on in his heart. And he approaches the bed and he says to Gandhi, "I am going to hell, but I will not take your soul in my heart as I go to hell." And Gandhi looks at the man and he says, "Only God knows who is going to hell." And the man says, "I have killed a child. I smashed his head into a wall. I have killed a child." And Gandhi looks at him and asks, why? And the man's eyes begins to well up with tears, and you can feel the grief and the pain in his words. They killed my son. The Muslims, they took my boy and they killed my son who was the love of my life. And I am going to go to hell. Gandhi then says this to the man: I have a way so you do not have to go to hell. You must find a child who has lost his mother and father. And you must take that child and raise him as your own son. Only that this child must be a Muslim child, and that you raise him as one. And you can tell from the look on the Hindu man's face, the surprise and the shock, the stunned look as he's bewildered by what Gandhi has just asked him to do. And he turns around and he begins to walk away. Stops. And he turns back. And he falls at the bedside of Gandhi, sobbing like a child. For he understands, as Gandhi understood, that compassion and love will stretch our hearts until we can embrace not only in sympathy but empathy. When compassion and love will stretch our hearts to embrace someone who is the other and to raise them as our child, as our parent, as our sibling and neighbor, as if they were one of our own. Gandhi knew of such compassion through all of his teachings of ahimsa, which is nonviolence, and his teachings on satyagraha, this truth force that all things are interconnected, and that when we come awake to this truth force, we will know it by the compassionate actions that we take. May it be so, and amen.
Please sing along with us. All I ask of you.
All I ask of you is forever to remember me as loving you. All I ask of you is forever to remember me as loving you. Ishkala Magbulila, Ishkala Magbulila, Ishkala Magbulila, Ishkala Magbulila. All I ask of you is forever to remember me as loving you. All I ask of you is forever to remember me as loving you. Ishq Allah Madbulillah in the Arabic language has been translated that the Holy One, God, Allah, is the lover, is the loving, is the beloved, is that complete and inclusive circle of love and compassion. And so whether it be with those with whom we sympathize, and with the other and the stranger and the immigrant with whom we are called to empathize, we take a step forth with our feet, our arms, our minds, but most assuredly, right here in our hearts, a step of compassion and love that may save all of us from violence and hell. May that be so, and Amen.